Good
Yeah,
morning.
here they come. I know that they were
Here we go.
downstairs. They were preparing for it. I just came up here because I didn't really want to be in the middle of a big group since I'm a new congregation. So I'm up here on the third floor, just hanging out by myself.
Here we are.
Carol.
Hey.
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear us?
Oh, great.
All right. He's on mute. You want to give me the mic?
All right, you all, good morning. Thanks for being here. We want to jump right in. We're excited today to have Dr. Doughtery with us. He is one of the instigators, creators, founders, I don't know which one we want to use, of the Thriving for Racial Justice initiative. And he's one of the sociologists, he's the director, working on the Thrive Project, and is going to be our guest. Dr. Doughtery is Associate Professor of Sociology at Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and his research explores religious affiliation, religious participation, racial diversity in congregations, congregational growth and decline, and the impact of religion on other realms of social life, such as community involvement, politics, and work. Specifically, he will be giving us an overview of the Thrive Project and explaining the survey, which is going to be part of the project, and it's going to be administered to our congregation in September. So we tested Zoom earlier this week, and it worked, but you know with technology it might not. So Kevin, can you just talk to us, and we'll see if we can hear you.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, First Baptist Columbia. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yeah, so take it away, jump right in.
All right, great. Hey, it is an honor for me to be with you. And so as you heard from Carol, my name is Kevin Doughtery, and I am coming to you this morning from my office on the campus of University in Texas. Now, I've got to tell you that this Sunday morning is a very, very uncommon time for me to be in my office. In fact, this might only be the second time I've ever been in my office on a Sunday morning, because usually I am with my family attending the Baptist church that we belong to. But for you, I'm willing to make an exception today. So I'm happy to be with you. So as you heard, I'm a part, as are you, of this really exciting endeavor that we're going to be doing together over the course of the next 5 years. And it's called Churches That Thrive for Racial Justice. And First Baptist Columbia is one of 26 churches from the Alliance of Baptists, handpicked to be a part of this learning community, where over the course of the next 5 years, we're going to work together to try to understand racial issues in our own lives and in our church and in our country, and ways that we can be proactive members in promoting racial justice, which is a core part of the Alliance of Baptists covenant that was just passed in the past year. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about the purpose of the project, and then the process that we'll go through in implementing it in the years to come. So starting with the purpose. So the purpose of this collaboration, and that's really what it is. I am one of 3 researchers involved, but really you and the other churches and the full range of churches in the Alliance are the key individuals and organizations that make this process possible. So it's a collaboration between researchers, religious leaders, and all of you that make up First Baptist Columbia and the other churches that are involved. And what we're trying to do together is to actively confront structures of racism and to find ways to remove them in order to allow flourishing to occur and thriving to occur for all people, regardless of color of their skin or national origin, or any of those other social barriers that often cause conflict in our society. So we're going to consider together the values and practices of your church and how they relate to racial justice. And hopefully, over our time together in the coming years, we're going to draw on your theology and your tradition to become the anti-racist people and church that you want to be. This, as I mentioned, this project is rooted directly in the Alliance of Baptist Covenant. It comes directly out of that. And the model that we'll be following in the years to come is a learning community model. So First Baptist Columbia is a part of the learning community that we've intentionally created with 26 churches spanning 17 states and 2 Canadian provinces. And although I've studied race in congregations for the last 20 years, I don't come in, nor either of my sociology colleagues, with a blueprint of what First Baptist Columbia needs to do. Rather, we're coming in with you to learn together. So this really is a collaboration. There's no curriculum, there's no program, there's no 10 steps that we're going to ask you to follow. We're through dialogue, through innovative strategies, we're going to work together to analyze the structures and the values of our operations in our churches, in these churches, and to try to think about how the future might look different. So that's a little bit about the purpose of the project. Let me shift gears and talk about the process and then see if you have any questions about your role in it. So while the work of the project is largely inside your doors, as a researcher, one of the things that I'm going to be doing with my colleagues is examining over time what impact this has on you, on your community, and on the Alliance of Baptists. We want this to be more than just, let's talk about ways that our lives can be different. What we're really hoping in this project, in the churches that thrive for racial justice project, is to provide a blueprint for congregations, denominations, religious organizations to become the type of anti-racist group that the Alliance of Baptists wants to be. So what we're going to learn from you through careful measurement, we're hoping to eventually share with others as ways to promote racial justice in other religious organizations in our country and in North America. So the way that the measurement process will work is you're going to be invited, and maybe you've already heard about it, to participate in the first ever survey of Alliance members. And this is going to be an online survey that will happen in the end of September. It's about 40 questions long, and it'll take you about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. So it's not designed to be burdensome in any way, shape, or form, but this instrument is critically important for us. And the reason is we want to see if what we do together as learning communities, whether it has an impact, and how we're going to determine that is by this careful measurement. So we need to know where people are today in their thinking on race and nationality and immigration, and how their beliefs, their religious faith and practices, how their beliefs and practices attach to those things. So this survey that happens in the end of September will be a critical starting point that we'll then return to in year 5 to see, after our time together, have thoughts and attitudes about race and racial inequality and the relationship of faith to those things? Have they changed in the Alliance and in your congregation? So the survey will be critically important. Now, my guess is that some of you may have some suspicions or outright anxiety about surveys. So let me try to put your mind at ease regarding our survey. First, we're not going to ask you as researchers for your name or any other uniquely identifying information. The group that's collecting the data in this online form, they will not report to us any uniquely identifying information about you. So you can be rest assured that your input on this survey, we want it to be candid and honest, even when it's uncomfortable, because we're not as interested so much in you as we are in First Baptist Columbia and the Alliance of Baptists as groups. We're sociologists, we study groups. Psychologists, they study individuals. We're in the group experience, and our data collection will be a part of that. So the online survey that we'll do in September, and then again in 5 years after we've completed the project, will be a critical part of our data collection. But you should know it's not the only way that we'll be assessing what's happening. We're also going to be doing annual surveys with leaders and lay members in your church and in the 25 other churches that are involved in the Thrive project. Now, this year, I had hoped that I would be able to make a visit, but with COVID and the Delta variant, everything that we do with you will be kind of like we're doing right now over Zoom. So for those of you that end up participating in our interviews this year, you won't have to see me face to face. I'd love to drink a cup of coffee with you or the beverage of your choice, but that'll have to wait until we can do so safely. So we'll be doing our interviews like the online survey. All of that will be done virtually this year. But our hope is in future years that I will be actually able to come and to spend some time with you, to interact with you in person, to observe what life is like in First Baptist Columbia. And I look forward to getting the chance to do that. So we'll be doing interviews annually. We hope to do a site visit when it's safe to do that in the years to come. And all of this will be a part of our data collection. So I mentioned that your participation is incredibly valuable to us. The more people that participate in the survey at the beginning, the better snapshot we'll have of attitudes towards race and racial inequality in the Alliance. And I just can't stress enough how valuable and important that will be to us. Okay, I've said a lot. You've been listening for 12 minutes now. Let me pause and see, are there questions or concerns that you have that while I'm with you, I can address?
Does that have a question?
For those of you that are online, you're also welcome to use the chat feature of Zoom if that would be an easier way to send your questions.
Will this survey be taken online in our own time?
Will it be taken online in our own time?
Yes, absolutely. You will receive an invitation, an email invitation, and then you will have the opportunity to complete the survey at your convenience. And in fact, some of you will be, great and prompt and do it right away. Others of you, it might get it filter down in your inbox and pretty soon you lose track of it. So you will receive, for those of you that need some reminders, you'll receive several reminders from us to inviting you to complete the survey. And our goal is, although this nearly never happens, our goal is to have every Alliance member participate in the survey. Now, that's idealistic, but if I can get every person in the room right now and with us on Zoom and the majority of participants at First Baptist Columbia to participate, well, then that's a tremendous step forward for us. The other important part of that, why you want to participate on behalf of your church, is that we will actually, because you're one of our cohort churches that are involved in the learning community, will be, based on your input, providing a congregational report. So how does First Baptist Columbia compare to other churches in the Alliance on the questions that we asked regarding race and racial inequality in faith? So it'll be a nice diagnostic tool for you and for your church leaders to use to see how you're doing on these issues, and then in the future, what you might do to improve upon those. So yes, you could do it at your convenience, and we hope you'll participate promptly and fully.
Any questions? Kathy?
We have a larger membership than we have people who participate. Will it be the larger membership, or?
That's a good question. She says we have a larger membership than people who participate. Will it be the larger membership taking part?
Yeah, so this probably won't surprise you, but as someone that studies congregations, that's the way it is in almost all U.S. congregations. And sometimes membership is double or even triple average attendance. We are asking for all members of the Alliance of Baptists to participate, whether people physically attend or virtually attend worship services or not. If you identify as Baptist and you're on the roster of an Alliance church, you're going to receive an email from us inviting you to participate in the Alliance member survey. Now, as a part of that survey, one of the things that we're going to ask you is, how often do you attend services and worship services in your congregation? And so we will have the ability to distinguish between members that are on a roster and aren't participating, and those that are more deeply embedded and actively involved in their local congregation.
We have a question in the chat.
Yes, so here's the question in the chat. Between the first and second surveys, I assume there will be educational activities at First Baptist. What activities or programs will be presented locally that will perhaps change our behaviors or attitudes? Oh, that is such a good question, Pam Humphreys. Thank you for asking that. Well, I can't answer that question because that's what you're going to decide. So the participants in and the learning community that we're fostering here with several participants from First Baptist Columbia, you are going to be deciding what is it that we need to do at First Baptist in Columbia, Missouri, to confront racial structures and to advocate racial justice. And that might look different than the Alliance Church in Indianapolis, Indiana, or Denver, Colorado, or St. Petersburg, Florida. So there's no, as I mentioned, there's no set blueprint or curriculum that we're going to roll out that you have to do. That's going to be a part of what you decide as a group, analyzing your own values and practices and determining where do we need to take action, and then putting those things into practice and letting us as researchers watch you do that and learn from you through our surveys and interviews. Great question, Pam.
Anybody else? All right, well, Kevin, I think that's all that we have for you, so you can feel free to jump off, but we invite our other online participants to stay on. Because our racial justice team has a few other things that we're going to do this morning.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for giving us your time and skipping church for us. Wow. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we're going to take just a moment then as our racial justice team to just tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing as a team. And I think that Lynn is going to go first. So Lynn Lampy, who is the lay leader that's partnering with me as kind of the co-chair of our Thrive project, is going to come and tell you a few things first.
Hopefully I don't last. Is this am I speaking okay with this? Sorry about that. So one of the, well, an interesting thing I think is that this church did have a racial justice team before. I'm not sure how long before it was before I started coming here. But So it's sort of like these two things are happening at the same time. And it's certainly, the grant will certainly enhance the work that our church can do. So one of the first things, and one of the reasons our team came together again, was we wanted to highlight on the church website the work that our church had already done to fight racism over the years, not just this year. And we wanted to offer resources to people in our congregation, but also the wider community, whoever accesses our website, lists of things that they could, well, books for one thing, read and learn more about and challenge beliefs. So the way that you can find this resource list is to go to the website, which is fec-columbia.org. Go to the Get Involved tab, and then under that tab you'll see anti-racism resources. So if you click on that, there it is. If you click on that, then you'll see a list of things that we've already done, and I'll just mention a few. There was a group that I think was led by Misty Phillips and Julie Walker on white privilege, let's talk. Our church also participated in a sort of a multi-church book study on America's original sin, white privilege and the bridge to a new America. And for that, we were partnered with Second Baptist down the street. And then out of that, our churches and then people from a couple of other churches went on a civil rights pilgrimage to Memphis and Birmingham and Montgomery. Yeah. There's also a link to a video of Richard Twist, who is Rosebud Lakota Sioux at the 2011 Christian Community Development Association conference. And I think when the last trip the church took to Bridger to visit with the folks there, I think Pastor Michael showed us that video. It was really, really powerful. So there are things like that, and actually if people are interested, we do have a PDF of our church history going back, to the founding, and that gives some real insight. There's information from back in the 1800s, but there's information from the 1970s too. So we really get a good picture. Anyway, at the bottom of that page, there's a place. Click here. That takes you to a list of books and books and other resources. They're categorized. So the books are generally nonfiction and cover a variety of different races and ethnicities. There are a list of resources for children, which is a small list, but we hope it will grow. There's also podcasts and websites, music, documentaries, and videos. So there's a lot of things in terms of the content, but also the format, because we don't all learn the same way. So hopefully there's something for everyone to access, and also if anybody has resources, and if you look at the list and you go, oh my gosh, they don't have that on there, please contact. You could contact me, you could contact the church office, and we can see about adding it. Also, we are trying to have resources featured in the Spire. So if anybody wants to write a review, I will say we are at this point trying to limit it to nonfiction. So that would be documentaries rather than general feature films, or it doesn't have to be a dry nonfiction book, but something that rather than just a novel, that it would be that just seemed an easier way to present the information at this point. So, thank you.
I will just add to, if you go and you look at the anti-racism resource list on the website, one of the requirements for these resources is that someone from our racial justice team had to have personally read or watched this. So this is not just what's popular out there that we grew up there, but actually someone on our team has read this, this resource. So if you look at that, you'll see that there's a wealth of knowledge already on our racial justice team. So now I think Stephen Hale is going to come up in just a moment and talk about a little bit more about our racial justice team and what we do, and yeah.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, my name is Stephen Hale, and one of the things that scares me is the word team or committee in a church setting, because it feels like another thing to do. Do I see a show of hands? Does anyone else feel the same way? Of course. So one of the things that I'm here to share with you about is this team that I rose my hand and said I'm interested in experiencing, the work that this church is doing in an environment that one has to be brave to enter. Is this invitation was sent out many, many, many weeks and months ago. But it's an invitation that I'd like to continually reach out and invite people to participate in. I'm considering these more of dialogues than real team meetings. We're not tasked with fast work and getting things done immediately. We're tasked with personal growth, learning, congregational growth, development. And so entering one of these times that we meet without having ever participated in a discussion with this team before is not out of the question. We don't want this to be a closed-off team of people who are on a mission, accomplishing so many different things, when showing up for one conversation could really impact everyone else, or even that one person that showed up, in a way that's unique and different and just so what this group is all about. So I believe our next time of meeting happens to be on a Sunday after the second worship service. I'm looking for somebody that can confirm this with me. I think it's September 12th. We'll confirm that. But we're trying to make it an easy place. It's going to be held at the church, but it's also going to be accessible via Zoom if those interested want to participate in the dialogue, in the conversation. So that's my invitation. It's been extremely helpful as a learning space, because it is, as Pastor Farrell mentioned this morning, it's a difficult conversation. They're not easy to have, but being brave enough to show up, or to be asking questions, or sharing what's going on. The item on the meeting agenda that I thought I would share with everyone that makes it less scary is, this is on the agenda almost every time, something like this. A time of sharing of something that you have learned or experienced since the last time that we met that might be informing to this group. It could be anything. And we're going to embrace and understand and grow with you.
I just wanted to say the meeting's at 1 o'clock on the 12th.
1 o'clock on the 12th. Thank you for confirming that.
So it's interesting to say that we have a really meaningful conversation at these meetings, but we really do very deep, meaningful conversation about our experiences and learning about racism. So as our final kind of activity today, as I mentioned earlier, Lynn Lampy and I have attended 2 all-day trainings already related to the cohort that we're going to be doing. And one of the trainings that we attended talked about, like, what is the process for even beginning to move an institution from kind of a place of cultural to being an anti-racist, multicultural institution. And which seems like impossible, how do you even begin to do that? But we actually took a training about how you begin to think about moving your culture, your institution to a place of being more multicultural and anti-racist. So one of the things they shared with us at the training was this chart. And we have several copies that are large print and some that are small print. Small print is kind of hard to see, but this chart talks about the continuum of, having an institution that is just, monocultural, that's exclusively kind of a segregated institution that is intentionally and publicly excluding African Americans or Arabs or Native Americans or Latinos and Asian Americans, that's intentionally and publicly enforcing the racist status quo, and that has even policies maybe and practices that would support segregation. And then it talks about, how do you begin to move from that to the fully inclusive institution that's a transformed institution in a transformed society, that's a future vision of an institution, a wider community that has overcome systemic racism, that it reflects full participation and shared power with diverse racial, cultural, and economic groups, that it has full participation in decision making, and the inclusion of diverse cultures, lifestyles, and interests. And it talks about basically where you are on this chart, kind of between those two things. And one of the things that Lynn and I learned is that basically institutions don't just arrive at being multicultural, anti-racist institutions, but usually we move kind of back and forth between these categories as we make steps forward, and then we make steps back. And if you maybe can think about your own workplace and how that's happened at your workplace, where maybe you got really excited after, I know for a lot of people in our country, after the rally in Charlottesville, the Unite the Right rally, your institution said, we're really going to do something now. And so they did this really good training. And so maybe your institution moved a little bit more, down the chart. But then everybody kind of forgot about it, and things maybe took a step back, and went the other direction. And so this is just kind of helping us think about, our institution, the church, and where we might be, on this chart. At this moment in time, I would say, so I invite you to spend a few moments kind of reading about, and maybe even, first just read through it, and then I'll invite you in just a moment to perhaps turn to a neighbor if you feel comfortable, and just chatting a little bit about where you think our institution is at this moment in time, okay? If you want to, you can turn and chat with the neighbor about it just for a moment. those of you who are here in the fellowship hall, we couldn't do this for folks who are watching online, but those of you who are here in the fellowship hall should have received a red dot. They have the little red dot. So this is the exercise they had us do in the training that Lynn and I attended. They had us just, for the moment in time we're in right now, to place ourselves on the chart here. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, when you leave in a moment, I'm going to invite you to go over here onto the wall and to place our institution on the chart where you think we are right now. There's no judgment about it. Nobody's, we're just curious. We're kind of grabbing a snapshot in time where we think our institution is now. So you'll see over here, the headings up there are correlated to these headings 1 through 6. So just in your mind's eye, think about where you think we are on the chart now. And when you leave, we invite you to go up there and just to put the dot, on the chart where you think we are now. So we just wanted to take this morning just to introduce you a little more to the Thrive for Racial Justice initiative. I hope you understood, it's not a particular program, it's more a cohort of churches committed to learning from one another. The initiatives and the classes or Bible studies or other events and activities that we do in our congregation will be decided at a local level between our pastors and our racial justice team. We're already doing some of this work, but this is just an opportunity to, I think, kind of be held accountable to the work, if you know what I mean. We know we're going to be checking in with these other 27 churches on a regular basis, and they're going to be saying, what are y'all been doing? And if we say, well, nothing, that's going to be bad, right? So it's a way to kind of hold us accountable, and I think also to ensure that we're getting good training. As I mentioned, Lynn and I have already been going to some trainings, and we'll be doing that on a regular basis. At least once, maybe twice per year, we'll be doing that, and then coming back and disseminating it. So we want to invite you also, if you're interested, to join, in the racial justice team in the leading process, and also just some of the great conversations we're having. And then as opportunities for Bible studies or book studies or guest speakers emerge, we want to really encourage you to participate and to invite others to participate as well. So, anybody have a question before I release you to put your dot? And I just encourage you kind of to take your time so we don't all crowd around the dot space at the same time. We've got, 10 minutes to get over to traditional worship for those who are going to worship. Lynn?
One thing I just wanted to mention is at the training group I was in, our facilitators were two Black women and a woman who identified as a lesbian, which I'm only mentioning to give context to what I'm going to say. But I think a lot of us, or all of us, maybe are used to the phrase safe space. Let's make this a safe space. But one thing one of the facilitators said was that that safe space is sort of a code for people of color that it's safe for white people. And I had never thought of it that way. And what she was suggesting was courageous space. And I really thought that was a good phrase because we are asking each of us, to be courageous. And this was really hard stuff. And I think courageous implies maybe a deeper dig in ourselves, but also maybe a deeper level of trust among ourselves. So I just encourage you to think over the differences between the two and to see what you can.
So Lynn said, for those of you who may be online who weren't able to hear, that one of the things we learned in our training is that when we use the language of safe space, that sometimes that's code to Black people to say it's really not safe space. It's safe space for white people. And so they would encourage us to not say we're creating safe space, but that we're creating brave space or courageous space, and that we're really trying to be brave in our kind of facing of racism, and to be brave in our confronting and our conversation about it as well. So thank you for that clarification. All right. All right, well, thank you all for coming, and just encourage you as you leave, not to crowd around it, but to put your dot up on the board over there so you can get a snapshot in time of where we are. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to turn off the meeting now.